You gotta love an exploding pineapple block. They are so impressive looking. They're one that you can impress all your friends. And they're great for beginners, but you don't have to cut out lots of little triangles. Oh no, it all starts with magic squares. So you're going to come with me and I'll teach you exactly how to make one of these on some very snazzy fabric, which I'm going to tell you about in just a second. So who am I? I am Kim. This is Quilt with Kim, or even this is Quilt with Kim. And let's get started on the tutorial. So these are the magic squares that we are starting with, and this is the snazzy fabric that I was telling you about. Why snazzy? Because I ice dyed it. Yes, really. There is a whole technique called ice dyeing and it's amazing, but you don't know what you're going to get. But I had some of this left over from when I was learning ice dyeing in the first place, and I thought that I would use it for this exploding pineapple block because I think it's going to look amazing. So what you're going to need is 2 sets of squares. Now, if you look below this video in the description, I've put a link to where you can find the download for what you need to cut your squares out as, and how many of each you need. And there's also the full instructions as well, because I know some people like to follow along on the written word as well as the video as well. So I've got you covered on both bases. So you're going to need the sets of the squares, and we're not going anywhere near triangles. No, I promised you no triangles. You are just squares. Now, you'll notice with the instructions, just before we get going, just bear with, you'll notice on the instructions that we need to cut some 8-inch squares. That's these ones here in this darker fabric, as I've put this in this burgundy. And if you don't know how to cut an 8-inch square, because 8 inches is bigger than your ruler, you will have noticed your ruler is 6.5 inches or 6 inches wide, just standard quilting ruler. And if you need to cut 8-inch squares, I've got a whole video showing you how to cut bigger squares. So I'll link up that in the description below, and I'll pop it on the end of this video as well, so you can just click through and check that out and work out how to do it. But if you know how to do that, then all you need to do is cut these squares, and then we're ready to put them together. First of all, then, you're going to have to decide which is going to be your primary or your center square and which is going to be your secondary color. So if I put my sampler quilt just underneath, this is the sampler block that I used to teach all my beginner sampler students in person, which is why it is not in a quilt, because it's far easier with a block. You will notice that I've got a center square here, and then it radiates out with the dark blue on the outside. So my primary color, my primary fabric in this case, is this cute little fabric with sewing machines on it. Did I really say cute fabric? With this fabric with sewing machines on it. So that's my primary, and then my blue is my secondary in this instance. So you need to decide which one is which. So when you're looking at your instructions, you'll see that one of the sets of squares you decide is your primary. That's the one you put in the middle first, and then the other colour would be your secondary. It doesn't matter which way round it is, just make that decision and then we'll get going from there. So if you've done that and you've cut out your squares, let's get on to the next little section and start putting them together. The first thing that we're going to do is get our centre squares. We're going to put the others to one side for the moment. We're going to get our centre squares and we're going to put them right sides together. Now it just so happens I have 2 fabrics here that don't have a right or a wrong side. So here's a top tip. When you've got a plain or a solid fabric like this one has here, it is dyed all the way through the base fabric, the base cotton, so there is no right or wrong side. So you can use either side. And my ice dyed fabric doesn't have a right or wrong side either. So I'm going to put those right sides together, just like so. You don't need to pin it, it will stay together quite well on its own. And we're going to stitch round the edges of that. And yeah, you heard me right, we are going to stitch around all 4 edges. No, I haven't lost the plot, I promise you. So we are going to stitch 1/4 inch all the way around the edge here. Now, I don't mind whether you stitch round and pivot on the corners and go round, or whether you just want to go straight down turn it round, straight down, and so on. You can do it either which way you like. And as I go through this exploding pineapple, I'll do it both ways just to show you. But let's get over to the machine and we'll get this stitched together first. Reading glasses at the ready. Now, if you're going to come down and just stitch one side at a time, I suggest you get a little bit of scrap of fabric just to get yourself going, because your machine will not like sewing on nothingness as it comes up to the edge. So my machine is set as 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to drop my needle. I am going to locate my foot pedal. And we're going to start stitching. So if you haven't done this before, what you do is you start stitching on this little scrap here. Let me peer over the top of my glasses like the grandmother in Red Riding Hood. So we're going to start stitching on our little scrap of fabric here. And as we stitch up to the edge, we're going to start offering up our squares here so that the edge of our squares line up to the edge of our presser foot there. But what you don't want to be doing is stitching these two pieces of fabric together. It will stitch just over a little gap and then it will carry on in here. So let me show you. So this is set, as I said, as 1/4 of an inch. And can you see as it's coming up, I am just offering this under the presser foot, and I need to just give it a little encouragement to start with so that the feed dogs take it, and then you'll feel it being taken, and then it's good to go. So let's get all the way down there. Okay. Now, just before you go flying ahead, I've got a little tip for you. So let's come off the edge and cut that thread off. Okay, so that's our first stitch line. I'm going to chop that off carefully there. So I've just snipped those apart. Now, there's a little rule when we're stitching things together like this. In fact, this rule comes up time and time again, is that if you want to stitch all the way around something, go opposites first. So you go from that side and then you stitch the opposite side, and then you do that side and then you do that side, or whatever. And the reason why we do that is because if you stitch all the way round in one continuous movement, or you do a stitch line there, then we do a stitch line there, you can sometimes find the fabric moves out of place, and it shouldn't do on this little square, but just sometimes it does. So it's a good little practice to get into, is to go opposites, and then you won't have that problem. Who knew? So let's get going on this side. So this is my opposite side. Okay, and off we go. Oh, and a little bit of news. I'm trialing out a Orifil thread, which I was sent by Orifil to try. So this is not a promotional post. I'm just telling you I'm trying it out. So far, so good. You're trying it out with me because I've just threaded out the machine. I haven't used it before. These stitches. So that's 2 stitch lines done. So let's do the other 2 lines and get those going. Okay, and off we go again. God, this is going to look so good. That's that one there. Can you see how I'm just crossing over the edges at the corners here? Let's snip that off and go down the final one. I've got threads all over the place now. And let's get the final one done. Get those threads out of the way. And down we go. Don't worry if your machine's just threading over nothingness for a couple of stitches, it'll be fine. And let's stitch down there. Okay. And let's cut our little thread saver off. So now we have an enclosed, completely enclosed square. What do you think you need to do now? No, you do not need to cut it into triangles. Well, you sort of do, but you don't. This is marvellous. It's very, very magic. So let me switch on to the next screen and I'll show you exactly what to do. But meanwhile, go and get yourself a ruler and a pencil. Right, see you in a sec. So here's our squares that we've stitched together. Now, do you remember at the beginning I said that you need to decide which is going to be your primary colour and then your secondary colour? And what I've chosen is this ice dyed lilac-y. That's going to be my primary colour for this. So my burgundy is my secondary colour. So for this next bit, you want to have your secondary colour facing up towards you. All right, let's get rid of all those stray threads. And by the way, I've just cut off all the little loose twizzles around the edges, but you know how to do that. Then get a ruler, just a standard, any old ruler, and get yourself a pencil. Don your reading glasses again. And then what we're going to do is measure, well, we're not going to measure, we're going to line up. Let's get that right in the middle of the screen for you. We're going to line up from the corner of that stitch line there where we crossed our little stitches, or if you've pivoted round that corner there, and we're going to put the ruler to the opposite, diagonal opposite corner there. All right, so if I spend just a second lining those two up, and then I'm going to draw myself a pencil line. Just a pencil line is fine. You don't need to go all out and get Taylor's chalk or any of the Chaco pens or anything like that. This is just enough for you to see. So if you can see a pencil line, which you can just there, that's what you need to end up with. So I've got one going that way, and then I'm going to turn it round, and I'm going to do exactly the same going in the opposite direction. Okay, make sure that you go from corner to corner. Don't veer off over to the sides. Don't be tempted. Go from that corner to the corner. Okay, so now I have got a nice little diagonal cross on my square. And this is where the first bit of magic happens. So you need to cut along these diagonal lines. Yeah, I know. So it can be a bit scary to start with. So let me grab my scissors and show you how to do that. Let's get the pencil out of the way for a minute. So the best way I've discovered is if you pinch these two pieces apart, because what you don't want to be doing is cutting your primary square, your first square. You only want to be cutting the fabric that's got your squared, your diagonal cross on it. So I've separated that out, and I'm going to carefully pinch across one of those diagonal lines. It does not matter which diagonal line that you're going to pinch first, because we're going to be cutting two of them. So I'm pinching there, and you will see that so I'm pinching along this, pinching along this diagonal here, this diagonal line, but you can see the other diagonal line is going across, okay, in a perpendicular fashion. And you'll feel, while I'm pinching it, you'll feel if the square underneath is getting into your finger. So really make sure that you've pulled it apart, because you do not want to be cutting that bottom square, because if you do, there will be tears before bedtime. Okay, so if I have done that pinching and I'm certain that my diagonal line goes across that little fold, I'm going to get my scissors. Make sure your scissors are sharp ones. You need it sharp right to the edge. Whoops, as I drop them, I'm going to make a little snip in that center. Okay, so I've just snipped very slightly onto that fold. Can you see there? Snipped very slightly onto that fold along the diagonal line that's going across. So I've pinched that one and I'm cutting on this one. Having done that, now I can get my scissors in, and I'm very, very carefully going to do this, very close to the camera for you, very carefully going to snip along those pencil lines. I don't want to veer off the pencil lines. Now, this is where you have to take your courage into both hands, which is probably a lesson for life, if I'm being completely honest. And we're going to snip almost, but not quite, to your stitch line. You're going to go as close as you dare, but you're not going to cut right up to the edge. So probably on the fabric there's like a couple of threads. Let me hold that as far up as I can make it without the camera going fuzzy. Can you see it's very close, but it's not quite there. That's what you're aiming to do. I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to turn, and I'm going to cut the other way carefully on that diagonal line. And the same thing, we're going to go as close as we dare to our threads. It's like a game of thread chicken. Okay, when you've done one side, now this is easy because we're going to go across the other diagonal lines. So locate your pencil lines and make sure you are on the pencil lines, and this is steady as you go. Don't be tempted to go speedy on this little bit and turn it round. Let's do the other way. I'm getting very used to all these camera angles, which is why I'm probably bobbing about a little bit, trying to get myself in the middle of the screen. I've got cameras everywhere, I'll tell you. Right, there we go. One of the YouTubers that I personally watch has a very clever console off stage left, which he just switches and flicks a switch to move cameras around, and one day maybe I'll get those. Anyway, now we've stitched right into the four corners. Sorry, the screen, when I move about, the screen goes in opposite directions to what I am. So if I go to the left, it actually goes in the opposite direction on my screen, which is not very helpful. So having cut those, if I go like that, ta-da! Is that not magic, or is that not magic? All right. So we're going to press those open, but before I do that, and I'll show you how to do that, just look at these corners. So can you see that little blip there? If you've got a straight line with my two triangles opening up, that's probably okay. If it is fighting a little bit and struggling, and we may come across one as we're making this, then just do a tiny, tiny little snip into there and it will open it up a little bit more. But if you're close to the corners, it should be absolutely fine. Right, let me get my iron. I'll show you how to iron this and how to do the next bit as well. So go and grab your iron. I'll see you in a second. All right, so iron heated up. I've got my Natty makeshift ironing mat, and if you've been following me for a while, no, I still have not got my ironing mat. If you're new here, well, welcome, but this is a bit of an old story that I've got a towel wrapped around loads and loads and loads of insulated wadding. So there's all my insulated wadding. Don't ever put a towel on a cutting mat, because you will ruin your cutting mat. This has got lots and lots of insulation underneath it, and insulation that is designed to keep the iron away. But one of these days I am going to surprise everybody with a proper little ironing mat. I don't know why I don't make it. It's probably all the time I haven't got. Anyway, we are going to press these little triangles out to the edges, just like that. You want to make sure that you're really pushing these out into the seams, because once these are all stitched together, there's no rescuing this one. So it's a good practice. Get into these corners to make sure they're nice and, well, sharpish. Actually, the sharpness doesn't matter so much, but what I do need to want to make sure is that English. We want to make sure that the seams are nice and flat. And if we are happy with those, let's get my ironing mat out of the way because it is a bit hot. I'm going to get my next square. Now, if we have a look at this just for a moment before you choose your next square, this lilac is my centre square. Where am I looking? My centre square. So that's my primary. So that was square one. We've put on our burgundy, in my case, my secondary fabric, which is square two. Now I want to go back to my primary fabric again. So we're going to alternate them. So I'm going to get the next size up of my lilac, which somehow has got crumpled just sitting over to the left of my cutting mat. And I'm going to put that on top of these opened triangles or petals or whatever you want to call them. So you've got your right sides now all facing up. Don't worry about all these extra bits around here. We're not going to touch those at all. Just exactly as you've pressed it, and then get your next square up of your primary fabric, which will, whatever is your center one, that's your primary, and we're putting it right sides together on top of your opened up triangles. Now you will notice that you will have little bits sticking out around the edge. Can you see, like here? That is completely normal, and as we go up the steps and the sizes, it will be a bit more pronounced. Really don't worry about it. What we are aiming for is this square that we've just put on is sort of centralized over those opened up triangles. And if we are happy that it's centralized, we're going to get back under the machine. So I'll see you over there. So we're ready again with our little scrap of fabric underneath the presser foot. We're going to start stitching on there, and we're just going to do exactly the same thing, is stitch 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So this is the same as you did on the first step. So let's get over there, and we're going to come all the way down. I'm going to come off the end, get my scissors and cut my little thingy off, and let's get going for the second side. So that's the side I've just done here. Whoop, that's the side I've just done here. Let's switch around there and get stitching. Okay, that's that bit. And let's do the other bit. I'm going to show you this square. And then I will show you what to do next, or I'll tell you what to do next, but then I'll speed the camera up just a little bit, because otherwise it's going to be very boring just watching me stitch squares, basically. So that's that one. Oops. And let's get the final one. Can you see with this little scrap, it really doesn't matter where I'm stitching. It's really just purely to get my stitch line going all the time, making sure that the edge of our fabric here is lining up to the edge of our presser foot to give us our 1/4 inch. Now before you skip ahead, don't go anywhere, because there is something that I'm going to need to tell you when I open up this one, which is important to know so it stops you worrying about things. So I'm just knocking the camera. Okay, so that's that square all stitched on. So let's cut this open, and then I've got that important thing to tell you. So let's go and do that. Here we are under the camera then. Don't worry about that it's all creased, because I am about to press it, so I'm not overly concerned about that. I'm going to do the same thing again. So this is the square that I've just stitched on. There is a gigantic tractor just driving past. It's that time of year. Okay, so I'm going from corner to diagonal corner, and I am drawing my pencil line just as we did before. I can't actually see. Okay, so it's that just as we did before, and then the diagonal on the opposite direction. Okay. So there's our diagonal lines there, and we're going to do the same thing again. You want to separate it out, so it's almost like creating a little pillow. So separate it out, pinch one of the diagonal lines, making sure that this fabric doesn't want to be best friends with the one that you're trying to cut. So pinch along one of the lines, which will mean the perpendicular line, go me with all the posh words, the perpendicular line will line up for you in the centre. So let me cut this. Don't go, if you think you're going to rush ahead, just bear with. So let me do a little snip in there, which enables me to get my scissors in. Okay, and we're going to cut up there. So same thing again, right to the corner, being brave. And we'll do it that side as well. Okay, so just as before, it's almost, but it's not quite. And then on the opposite diagonals as well. Just be careful. You may have noticed on the first one, but when we pinch it, the creased line veers off to the right. That's okay, because we'll press it out. Just make sure you're cutting on the pencil line. That's what you want to be concentrating on. If you'd like me to do a video, by the way, on how to do ice dyeing, drop me a comment below and I will organise that for you. So if you comment, I will fulfil all your wishes. Well, maybe not all your wishes, maybe just that one. Okay, and actually on a serious note, I can't see my diagonal line. On a serious note, if there's anything that you're struggling with or anything you'd like to learn, do put comments below, because as you will see from all my videos, I reply to all my comments. It is me personally replying to everybody. And if you have a request or something you're struggling with, I will add you onto my recording list and I will record you a video. So that's those cut. Now we're going to press those open. Where are you? We're going to press those open just as before. So let me get my ironing mat ready to go, and then we'll talk about the thing that I need to tell you. There we are, with the magic of camera work. Don't let anybody ever tell you that the camera doesn't lie, because it does. However, with a bit of a pause in recording, I can get everything into position. So all I'm doing is exactly as I did before, and I'm pressing out these triangles, making sure that these edges are nicely, or these corners rather, are nicely pressed out, and I don't have any little foldy bits. You know, when the fabric can fold back on itself, we don't want any of that shenanigans going on our watch. Thank you very much. So get in there with the iron and press all of that out. This is going to look really pretty with this ice dye. I love it. Okay. Not available in any stores near you. It's just in my stash boxes. Okay, now what I want you to notice is what has happened here. So where you have got, so this was our second, or our first round we went on, our first burgundy square that we put on. And we put that on, we stitched round, we cut it, we opened it up, and it all looked fine and dandy. Now we've got our second round, or our third square as it were, which, goodness me, all the farm vehicles going past. I ought to give them my recording schedule in advance. So this is our second of our lilacs in this place, or our third square, or our second round, which, you know what I mean. We stitched that on, but can you see how it's made these corners blunt? That is completely normal. I do not want you to worry about that. This is what exploding pineapple is. It is completely normal. So if I grab my original one from my sampler block, which is just here, can you see on here, and you may not have noticed when I showed you before, how all the corners just blunt as the next round goes on. So that is completely normal. That is what exploding pineapple block is. Don't worry about it. Don't stress. That's fine. So guess what we're going to do now? Yes, exactly. We're going to put the next square on. So we're wanting the burgundy square, the next up in size. What I've done, by the way, let me just bring this under the camera. I have put my squares up in size order. So when you alternate them, you'll see they go up in size order, and that's what you want. So I'm getting my next square. Let's turn that round, and I'm going to pop that on top of that. Again, it will be right size together. If you remember, I don't have a right or a wrong side of my burgundy. You will see though that I have little edges poking out because it gets a bit wibbly wobbly. That's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Just center it up in your opened up. It's like an opened up flower. In fact, have you seen Stranger Things? You know, in the sort of nasty horror animal thing, whatever it is, they have the mouth opens up like a flower. It looks a bit like this, doesn't it? Isn't that the thing out of Stranger Things? No, it's much nicer. So I'll shut up, shall I? Let me put that square in the centre. So we're straightening it up, we're squaring it up, we're getting it in the centre, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stitch round 1/4 of an inch. We're going to cut it, we're going to press it open, and then we're going to layer it up that way. So I'm going to do all of that now, but I'm going to speed this bit up because it is exactly the same process, and then we'll just compare notes at the end. All right? So I'll see you at the end. And there we have it, our very own exploding pineapple block, which is really effective. Now, if you do a whole bunch of these and alternate your centre squares, so each of these alternates their colours, you get a really effective quilt very, very quickly. And it looks so impressive to everybody who doesn't quilt. So it's just yours and my secret. I hope you have loved it. If you've enjoyed it, please pop a comment below and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And if it has helped, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I will love you and leave you for now and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.